about background about you. Kind of how you, became Attorney General.
Okay, yeah, I was born and raised on a farm near Dexter, and I served as the Guthrie County Attorney and also as president of the County Attorneys Association when I was just elected this last election as Attorney General.
Awesome. So what made you, want to run for Attorney General?
Well, as a prosecutor, I really care about working with law enforcement, protecting crime victims, and helping keep our state safe, and I can do that as Attorney General.
And I think I read the Des Moines Register's piece about you. When was the first year that you took office or seeked office? Do you know what the year was?
The first time that I was a county attorney was in 2016 in Fremont County. Yep, and I've also been Guthrie County Attorney. I live in Guthrie County now, and for a time I was Audubon County Attorney when they were looking for someone to help them out.
Awesome. And so for you, what does it mean to hold this seat?
Well, what it means to me is I have an opportunity to serve all of Iowa and to work on the things that we all really care about, like protecting crime victims, helping prosecutors, supporting our law enforcement, and keeping our state safe. And I'm very thankful for that opportunity.
And, as you, kind of step into this role, what is going to be, your kind of top priorities that you're looking at?
Sure. Well, it's very important that we beef up the prosecution portion of this office so that we are prepared with a team of all-star prosecutors to work throughout the state to hold criminals accountable and help crime victims. It's also important to have a team that can push back against the federal government when they go too far with their overreach, so we're working on that as well.
For sure. And is there anything that you kind of have maybe that's already in the works or that you're already getting or hitting the ground running with?
Oh, absolutely. Day one, we announced a bottom-up, top-down audit of all victim services to make sure that we are serving victims in the way that really matters. That's important to me as a prosecutor. We are also going to institute a special victims unit within our prosecutions unit that will focus on sexual assaults and prosecuting criminals like child molesters.
And do you have any ideas with the sexual assault? I know that a couple of years ago it was a big thing where the they weren't getting tested and they had a huge backlog. So do you have any kind of ideas how you can help with that?
Absolutely. I think one thing that is very important is to make sure that everyone gets the training they need in order to best serve victims of sexual assault. That is so important. We want to make sure that all parts of the state have services available to victims, and that's why we're doing that audit of victim services.
For sure. And then one thing that I also saw was that you'd be looking to implement a new unit for the federal government to kind of focus on that. Can you kind of explain that a little bit?
Sure. Yes, we are implementing a new unit, and what that will do is push back against the unconstitutional overreach of the Biden administration. So the times when they violate the laws and Constitution, things like the COVID vaccine mandates, which are unconstitutional, the student loan cancellation, which wasn't based on any law, and it would be required to be based on a law, and other actions like that that the federal government might take that violate the rights of Iowans. And so what I do as Attorney General is I stand up against the overreach of the Biden administration and take them to court.
For sure. And I think it also mentioned that you were going to be looking at agriculture a little bit. Can you kind of explain that as well?
Sure. I was born and raised on a farm, so agriculture is very, very important to me. It's who I am. And I'm very concerned about what's going on in Washington with the EPA and other organizations out there, bureaucracies that don't understand what agriculture really is. And I will be an Attorney General who stands up for agriculture.
For sure. And then what would you say, is going to be the biggest difference between you and Tom Miller?
I think that I have very different priorities from my predecessor. I will be pushing back against the federal government. I will also be working with law enforcement and prosecuting crimes. Another big difference is I plan to work in every county in Iowa every year so that I can listen to Iowans, hear your concerns, and do something about it.
And I saw another thing that you'd be pushing was that Back the Blue. How can you help police officers in the state?
Yeah, well, it's important that law enforcement have a good relationship with the Attorney General's office for things like training, working cases that cross boundaries. There's a lot of things that we can do together, and I love working with law enforcement. They are heroes with a good heart, and that's one of the best parts of my day is when I get to meet with law enforcement.
And then kind of going back at Tom Miller's time, is there anything that maybe you would take from his career and bring it with you? Maybe something that you saw that seemed to work.
Yeah. Well, one thing I will say about Tom Miller is we do see the world in very different ways. However, he is very much a gentleman, and he's been very helpful through this transition process. And I appreciate that, and I applaud that, and that's something that I share as well.
And then kind of my last thing, how are you feeling ahead of being sworn in today?
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing everybody and kicking things off.